Ever wonder why you can't stick to new habits no matter how hard you try? The answer might surprise you. And today I'm going to show you how to hack these habits for lasting change. Hey, it's Charlotte. I hope you're having a great week. It's nice to be back with you today. If you're here watching, let me know and let me know if there's a habit that you've been working on that just isn't going quite as well as you would like it to. What we're going to do today is first talk about habits, and sometimes these habits are more of a positive thing and they have um, attachment and desire related to them, and sometimes they have more of a negative connotation. So let's start with the ones that are our bad habits first. We have this concept called a habit loop. And in order to talk about how to change our unwanted habits into more desirable habits, we're going to start here. So often, in order to go into this habit loop, we need a trigger. For that, it could be stress, it could be a conversation, it could be a look somebody gives you. Something creates this response in our system, and in this negative habit loop, it creates discomfort or some kind of stress. And then we end up in a position where a craving to alleviate this symptom, our tiredness, our stress, our fatigue, our boredom, and we need something to resolve it. From there, we end up doing some behavior that allows resolution of that uncomfortable feeling. And then, possibly the most important part of this loop is the reward. So we get some kind of dopamine hit in the form of feeling pleasure, joy, relaxation, or just relief from whatever it is that we're trying to get relief from. Does that make sense? Let me know if that lines up to how you've experienced a bad habit in the past. And now, after getting that out of the way, we're going to go into how to create habits that move us towards the things that we want in our lives. So these would be more of those good habits and the desirable change that we're looking for. And one of the most important things that we want to consider here in order to achieve lasting change is to focus on creating identity-based habits rather than outcome-based habits. And this means shifting your mindset from a goal of, I want to lose 10 pounds, to, I want to be a healthy person, or I am a healthy, fit, lean person. And that allows us to shift from this nebulous weight loss goal into, well, I'm a healthy person, and therefore I make changes or decisions in my life that align with my identity as being a healthy person, instead of, ugh, I can't have that cake because I need to lose 10 pounds. And it's easier when our habits line up with our identity in order to become a more natural part of who we are, as opposed to big decisions that we need to consider because of the ramifications that they have on the outcomes that we desire. We can still have the outcomes, those can be our goals as they are written down. I would just suggest that creating an identity around the goal might also be helpful in order to create that lasting change. And there's a lot of research behind that. With that said, I will say that identity change can be very difficult. So it's very easy to be like, I am a healthy person. But what if being a healthy person means instead of going out with friends for drinks every Friday night, you are now thinking, oh, like that extra alcohol and a late night, I'm a healthy person and that could interfere with my sleep routine and my digestive tract or whatever it is. And it will take you away from the social time and the connection that might feel equally good at the end of the week after working for 5 days or however many shifts that you have. That can create this grief or loss, sense of loss for your old self or the old routine that you used to have. And there is also the fear of the unknown. What if you've never identified as being a healthy person before, and this is completely new to you, and you don't necessarily know how that's going to impact your life as well as the ripple effect on the people around you? That might be pretty scary. Let me know if you've ever been in that position in terms of creating a new habit or a new behavior. It can create this almost sense of separation, especially if a lot of the people in your life have habits that you also have, except now you've identified that they're things you want to change. But it can be hard to like express that the status quo doesn't work for you anymore, especially when you might have some fear of creating a sense of separation or creating or eliciting judgment from other people who may come back at you saying, "Oh, so you think you're better than us?" or something like that. So there is definitely the opportunity for that to happen. And we'll talk about how we can start regulating around that in order to make the change easier and the transition smoother. So if you can start by asking yourself, who do I want to become in terms of creating that new identity? Then if the answer doesn't feel quite comfortable or sit well with you yet, being able to do some drills around that change, and maybe that's some straw breathing, or maybe it's doing some gentle exercise and just being within your body. For those of you who know tapping, the emotional freedom technique, where you're tapping your karate chop point, the inside of the eyebrow, the outside, underneath the eye, under the nose, under the chin, collarbone, under the armpit, top of the head. That was a quick overview, but there are so many videos on YouTube if you're interested. Sometimes that can be a really helpful way to reconcile this new person that you want to be with who you have become, or sorry, who you were before. And then that, as you move forward with new habits, allow you to reinforce your new identity so that ideally, with every action that you take towards your new habit or your new persona, it's less scary and it feels more natural. NLP also has some fantastic techniques that allow you to change your values, and values are a large part of our identity. So if you have a set of values and you would like to be able to change them or at least examine them, I've talked about values before, but we can create a situation that allows us to see whether our values are move towards or move away from values. And it might be helpful to shift some of them if they are moving away from values into move towards values. And by that, I mean maybe at the moment you see fitness or health as one of your values, but it's a move away from value, which means you're moving away from the pain of not being healthy or having good fitness, as opposed to moving towards the pleasure of enjoying great health and incorporating fitness in your life. Let me know if that makes sense to you. For our second tip here, we are going to talk about the role of small, consistent actions and how important they are in habit formation. This is another crucial factor that has been heavily documented in the research as being an effective way to elicit habit change. And we often think that, maybe January 1st rolls around and we're going to be a totally new person. But often that is not a sustainable change because we're shedding our old skin and trying to take on way too much, way too soon. It's tempting to do, but I would encourage you to stop and consider little actions that can snowball and then lead to this lasting change. And this is known as the compounding effect. If any of you are familiar with the book Tiny Habits, it has this same message, which is to take a behavior that you want, something new that you'd like to adopt, and then make it really small, make it even smaller than you'd think. I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and it was this woman advertising her nervous system regulation program. It's so fun what the algorithm sends you, hey? And she was like, I'm answering this question. How long do you need to regulate your nervous system every day? And the answer is 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, sure. Why? And so she goes on to say, this is a small amount of time and this is completely manageable. And we only need to do 20 minutes of work every day in order to get regulation. And that's fine. But what if someone doesn't have 20 minutes in a day? What if they only have 2 or 3 minutes in a day? Is it worth it to do anything if you aren't hitting that 20-minute mark? I am going to argue with that person's video and say, absolutely it is. Because even if you do a minute or 2 minutes of some kind of breathing or some kind of calming technique, if you're in a stressed state, that can have a big impact on breaking those well-worn pathways and allowing you to start moving towards the behavior or the action that you would like to have, even if it's not as much as you would like to have. So maybe we're just creating pattern interrupts with shorter stints, but it's still better than nothing. We're still not allowing our nervous system to lead us into a greater stress response or a more overwhelmed threat bucket. We're going, oh, noticing something that you can do in that time to feel better. Good morning, Sharon. So nice to have you here. How are you doing? So in that on similar topic as that, I have been away for the last week and definitely not taking part in my normal routine or habits. And so lately I've been trying to cultivate a morning routine that ends up being, depending on how much exercise I do in the morning, like 30 minutes to an hour and a half if the exercise is included. And when you wake up and you're kind of tired and you're not used to waking up for work, just from personal experience, that thought of, okay, this morning routine is going to be an hour. If I exercise, it's going to be an hour and a half. Like, I might as well just go back to bed. And so, having an all or nothing mindset around this makes it really hard to do anything. And I know some of you here might consider yourselves to be recovering perfectionists. So, maybe you've already taken that mindset throughout your life and tried to apply it, and maybe it's something that you're looking to change. So for me, I just thought, okay, you know what? I can do I can do parts of this, and I am going to be gentle on myself and not force myself to do the whole thing, because where I am in terms of energy and headspace is not a good place to start, and something is better than nothing. So even if I did 5 minutes of a 30-minute routine this week, I still counted that as a win because I was able to maintain some consistency. And being able to do that in your own life, just a small amount, taking a little bit of action towards something, allows you to create more certainty in that identity that you've created for yourself. Like, I am a healthy person, or I prioritize self care. So if you are someone who would rather do everything than nothing at all, I might encourage you to reframe that as like, maybe a little bit is better than nothing. And I do have physio clients who tell me the same thing. They're like, you know what? I haven't done all the exercises, but there's one that I really like. And so I've been consistent with that one every day or every couple of days. And I'm like, yes, that is amazing. Good for you. So I would encourage you, depending on what you're hoping to work towards, to choose one small habit to begin with and commit to doing that daily. So maybe if you want to start doing workouts on a regular basis, commit to 5 minutes of exercise every day. That's it. Maybe you walk to the end of your street and then you come back. And gradually you'll build real momentum and start to see bigger results over time. It just starts with that little push at the beginning, and you can end up making huge progress from there. Maybe you don't even go outside, but you set your walking shoes by the door. That's a great first start, too. I am going to come into our last part of today's training, which is understanding and overcoming emotional triggers. And these emotional triggers can be a little bit tricky. They can upend our best attempts to put habits into place. And these are these hidden emotions as well as past experiences that can kind of sabotage your efforts. So, being able to recognize and address your triggers is really important to staying on track. And maybe, for example, if you know that when you get stressed, you tend to get really hungry or mindlessly eat, not speaking from experience, of course, or if you're anticipating a challenging conversation or a public speaking engagement, then that might lead to this rumination on all the terrible things that could go wrong. So, when you do feel that big, overwhelming stress response, I would highly encourage you to see if you can, thank your system for giving you that clue. Notice maybe where you're feeling it in your body and become a little bit detached from the feeling as well as the emotion so you can decide what it's trying to convey. Maybe it is that you need some calming or you need some exercise or it's time to reach out to a friend and have some social support, which is huge, especially when you are having life changing events or stressful situations in your future. So try your best. This is that pause between the stimulus and the response to take a moment and identify the emotion as well as what you are feeling the urge to do. We're coming back to that habit loop again. And once you can start to understand your triggers, then you can develop strategies to help manage them, whether that's doing some of your neuro tools or some breathing or mindfulness exercises, or again, reaching out to a supportive friend or family member. Does anyone here have examples of where they've felt stress overwhelm them and they're really compelled or driven to do something that they didn't really want to do in the first place? I know I've been in that situation and no shame, it happens. And if you don't want it to happen, there are ways that you can fix it. I just wanted to wrap up today by saying that overall, when we want change, the most important thing to do is to feel really good about the change that you want to make. If you are doing something because someone else has told you to do it or because you think it would be better for you to do it, it doesn't usually end up lasting. So if you can figure out a way, and maybe this is something that does have sort of a positive as well as a negative for you. Maybe it's something like smoking, and you know that, well, for my own health, it would be better if I quit, and everyone else is telling me to quit too. But it's also kind of relaxing and enjoyable. I don't know. That's my example. I've never smoked, so I don't know. But just from what people have told me, maybe in that case, instead of taking the advice of people that are telling you it's going to kill you, you're going to end up with lung cancer, and things like that. Again, maybe making that reframe about, well, I'm making this decision because I care about my health and I want to lose weight, live a more holistic lifestyle, whatever it is. And smoking cessation is a small part of that. And it's not, I need to quit because so and so is telling me that I need to, otherwise, whatever reasons. And when you do that, again, we're looking for small changes as well as celebrating any progress towards the change that you've made, because being able to give ourselves that dopamine hit with some kind of reward is really important for helping us to stay on track. So, whatever that means to you, I made a sticker chart for myself once and got pretty stickers from the dollar store. Maybe for you, it's tallying up habits that you've changed and being able to reward yourself with something, a new book that you've wanted, a night out, a date night at the movies, or something like that. But you're giving yourself some motivation to keep heading down the track that you are so that you can have those changes in your life that you've been desiring. So, with that, Thank you so much for being here today. If you know that you're someone who has trouble sticking to your habits, feel free to leave a comment below, and I would be happy to connect with you and share some more ideas around your particular issue. For my friends in Canada, I hope you have a wonderful Canada Day this weekend. We have a long weekend here, and happy 4th of July to everybody in the States next week. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you here next week.